So before we start our Hilchot De'ot class, I'll tell you what's happening. So the purpose of this deal, everybody got angry at Trump. Why is Trump putting pressure on Bibi Netanyahu? This is 2 weeks ago to do this deal, or 2.5 weeks ago. The whole thing was a put on. Trump did not put pressure on Bibi Netanyahu. The hostages were going to all, be killed. They didn't have too much time left. So they did this, they did a sketch. I'm analyzing it, but it's clear to me that I'm correct. They did a sketch where it looked like Trump was going against Bibi, so like that, Hamas, they're like, oh wow, we're gonna get a good deal here. And Hamas agreed to come to the negotiating table, and they had this stage 1 deal, which is gonna lead to stage 2. There was never gonna be a stage 2, everybody knew it. I mean, maybe Hamas didn't, they're not, they don't have human brains, so I don't know what, But the point is that there was no stage 2. The whole purpose of the deal was to try to rescue some hostages alive, and that's what they did. They rescued a whole bunch of hostages alive. God knows where the Bivas babies are. God knows where the Bivas mother is. They released the Bivas father. These people are worse than the Nazis. That's the truth. It's an insult to humanity that Hamas is allowed to be anywhere. And for that matter, what Trump wants to do, which is just get the Palestinians the heck away from the Jews, is just wonderful. Let the people who support the Palestinians take them in. They love them so much. Send them to Ireland. It'll be beautiful. They'll do a wonderful job in Ireland. The Irish will be very happy with them, I'm sure. Anyway, what happened now in terms of Trump saying that Israel should just basically, all hell should break loose, is because they started negotiating for stage 2. And there is no negotiation for stage 2, so it's breaking down. Hamas knows that they're not going to release any more hostages. And that's why basically Trump said release all the hostages. There was never a deal to release all the hostages. But he's saying it because he knows there's not going to be a stage 2. So he's just basically giving an excuse for why Israel is going to destroy them. So that's what's happening now.
I think there's also he saw the came back initiated unacceptable.
Yeah.
Now, what you're doing with the rest of them?
Yeah.
Let them all out.
I don't think anybody, unfortunately and sadly, I don't think anybody there was no expectation that they would come back anything but emaciated. It was simply, what happened is horrible. Mamash timchet zecher Amalek. There's nothing else to say about this. But second best is kick him out of the Gaza Strip, and then eventually kick him out of Yehuda v'Shamron. That'll be beautiful. And now also another thing that came out today, which is very interesting, and this is all over the Israeli news. You're back in December of 2023, meaning a month after Israel started. There was going to be back in December, I'm sorry, I lost the count of the years. The point is that they were going to surrender. There was going to be a complete surrender because the Palestinians realized that Israel was going to destroy them. And what happened is the Biden administration insisted that Israel let in humanitarian aid. Right, they did. Very humanitarian of the Biden administration. Of course, now the hostages, God, you have babies there. God knows where the babies are. I mean, it's simply, you have people living in concentration camp-like conditions. So there you have, there's a pasuk that says, Chesed le'umim chatat. Whenever a goy speaks about kindness, to do some kindness, some charity, it's usually there's an adera. This is a great example, humanitarian aid taken by Hamas to continue torturing Jews. That's a simple truth. To me, it was a crime. I'm sorry to say it. I'll say it. Any Jew who voted Democrat in this election made a horrible mistake, and he should say Bidu and Yom Kippur. That's all I can say. Sorry for putting it so bluntly. I mean, no, you literally are voting for a party that allowed Hamas to torture Jews. What else can I say? There's nothing else to say. There's no nice way of putting it. It's good to be aware of our mistakes. If I make a mistake, I hope you let me know about it. I don't want to live with mistakes. I want to be able to say Bidu in front of God. So I'm putting that out there. It came out today in Israel that they found the papers. They were going to surrender. They were going to surrender the hostages. They were all going to starve to death. They realized better to surrender the hostages, but then humanitarian aid stopped it all. So that was that. Is that crazy? A month into the war. A month. Crazy. All right. Politics. Anybody want to continue politics? Or you want to study Torah? All right. Let's study Torah.
Thank you.
Here you go.
Pass it in, or?
Here you go. Pass it down.
Oh, you have, oh wow, good for you.
Shalom.
It has it in English too? Yeah.
Okay, so we are studying Hilchot De'ot. And it's great. It's great to read what the Torah says about how to build a healthy personality. because there's no greater truth than the truth found in the Torah. And we learned last week that a person should always try to avoid the extremes and be very well balanced directly in the middle. So we're going to give a few examples of what it means to be directly in the middle, meaning not to be in the extreme this way, not to be in the extreme that way. So the Chen Lo Yitaveh, we're Perek Aleph, I think like halachat tet or halachat hayet, depending on the version of Harambam that you have here. Okay, Bechen Lo Yitaveh. Yeah? Does that make sense? You want me to help you find it? Or you? Perek Aleph, either halachat tet or halachat hayet. Bechen Lo Yitaveh. Ela ledevarim shaguf sarich lahem. A person, in terms of one of the character traits that we spoke about, was the trait of indulging in physical pleasures. So a person should not desire things for his physical needs unless it's something that he needs, meaning a food. Meaning a person's desire for food should be related to the health benefits that that food gives a person. So, for example, I just give you an example. A lot of the food in the United States, unfortunately, is poisonous. It's just poison. There's no other way to put it. Now, you know, so they put this what's the last?
Fried chicken.
No, I'm not even talking. Chicken is fine. Listen, chicken has a health benefit. If you cook it, you fry it, but it's still chicken. It has protein. It has. Okay, look. I'm actually taking a lenient approach. I'm talking about stuff, junk food, processed junk food that they have in the stores. You know, it's just poisonous. There's a lot of food here that's illegal in most of the world, and they sell it here. So the point is, so when you eat, that's a good example. Fried chicken, I like that example. Chicken has a health benefit. I desire to eat chicken, whether I like to put whatever spice on it. Okay. But it's a normal desire because I'm going to get nourished by it. Or steak. I go to a nice steak place. I eat the steak, and I feel good. I feel like it really nourishes me. So when I'm not being an extremist, I don't think Harambam meant to be an extremist. I'm not saying you should have broccoli, all the time or whatever. I would never say that. I would never do that. I wouldn't be, rather Harambam is saying, you desire that chicken. Okay, but it's actually healthy. It has health benefit, right? You desire your bread. Okay, your body needs carbs, right? It needs that. But then there's things that are just complete, how shall we say, there is no benefit for the body from consuming that food. So if you're eating something for which the body derives no benefit, that would be an example of no, you shouldn't be doing that, right? Ke'inyan shenemar, there's actually a pasuk. The pasuk is in Mishleh. The pasuk says, "Sadiq ochel lesova nafsho." When a sadiq eats, when a person eats food as a sadiq, he's eating food that's going to satisfy his soul. Meaning, your soul is connected with the body, and the soul is aware when you're poisoning the body. So if you poison the body, the soul is upset about that. The soul desires the health of the body, and therefore, when you eat well, the soul feels, it feels good, right? You had a good meal, it was healthy, you nourished the body, and the neshama is pleased with that. So that's Sadiq Ochel Lesova Nafsho. So that was the thing of eating food. So here when it says Lesova Nafsho, I think for Harambam this means the neshama, what we call neshama, the soul, the spiritual aspect. Because there's a physical aspect, and then the spiritual aspect that goes to Olam Haba, right? So the spiritual aspect that goes to Olam Haba, that's the nefesh in Harambam's terminology. We call it neshama, he calls it nefesh. Okay, but of course it's a pasuk from Mishleh. Okay,
There's nothing here about this. But he's not talking about the distinction of like kosher and non-kosher food. It's really, he's even saying like kosher food that just might not be good for you. Or do you think that
this has nothing to do with kosher, non-kosher? That's correct. You could be eating kosher food, and it could be extremely unhealthy for you. So they have all these dyes that they put in the food, artificial flavors, and artificial colors, and many of these artificial colors are poisonous.
Starting to ban them.
What? Yeah, now they're finally starting to ban it, right? But like in other countries, they're illegal. So that's an example of why am I eating this yellow dye or this red dye, or am I giving it to my children? So Sadiq Ochel es Sova Nafsho, Sadiq is saying, wait, this yellow dye is very dangerous, I'm not going to eat it, right? I don't care that it looks nicer, yeah, it does look nicer, okay, but I'm not going to eat it because it's harmful to me, right?
What about the pleasure that you get from eating it?
There's nothing wrong with getting pleasure from food. On the contrary, and I said this last week, God made delicious food, meaning the fruits are delicious. God made it so that we can enjoy the food. So you don't have to give up enjoyment of food in order to eat healthy. And that's why I don't go to the extreme and I don't say, oh, you all have to eat macrobiotic. You remember the macrobiotic diet in the 90s? That was a big thing. People were saying to eat macro, I think it's rice and different types of grain, and there wasn't a very great variety. So you don't have to go to extremes. Just eat healthy food that's good for your body, and you're doing yourself a service. So that's one thing. Rambam says that when you work, you should work in order to get money that you need to fulfill your financial expenses, right? Meaning, getting money should be a means to an end. So the money is the means, and the end is, well, I have certain needs. I need a house, I need food, I need to pay yeshiva bills. There's a lot of needs. So when you work, you shouldn't be looking to attain money as a way to feel arrogant, or as a way to feel a sense of I'm better than everybody else because look how much money I have more money than that person, and I finally exceeded him in my wealth and my assets. No, that's a bad psychological trait, and it's a destructive psychological trait because it makes you lose focus of what's important in life, and there are things that are important. And that's what the pasuk says, Tov me'at la-sadiq. A sadiq is happy with fulfilling his needs, right? Whatever those needs are. Tov me'at la-sadiq. V'lo yikbos yado beyoter. Okay, so that's another trait. Now let's go to the third thing. We're summarizing what we read last week, although we didn't read this last week. This is Harambam summarizing or giving, this is Harambam giving specific examples of how a person finds the middle ground, right? Another thing. Another thing. A person should not be a spendthrift and just give out money to other people and just throw his money around. But I'm doing tzedakah. Okay, you should do tzedakah, but you shouldn't spread out your money. Even to do tzedakah, you give tzedakah, you give charity according to what you can afford, right? Don't give more charity than you can afford. Or you give a loan to somebody who needs, and so on. So you understand the basic idea. This is what Rambam is saying, and I wanted to skip a line and look what it says. Kol Adam. And you're going to now have a very interesting definition. There's a term that you heard a lot, and you're going to be surprised at the meaning of that term. So here goes. Kol Adam, any individual, who knows how to balance himself and always find the middle ground in every one of his personality traits, in every one of the traits that make up his personality, right? He found the middle ground. You know what you call that? Chacham. That's what a Chacham is. A Chacham is a person who, because of his intelligence, he was able to build a character which is a well-balanced character. Isn't that interesting? That's what a Chacham is. Nikra Chacham. That now you're going to be even more surprised by the next term. There is going to be a situation where a person is going to be called upon in certain cases not to be in the middle. We're going to see why. We're going to see why. But there's going to be some cases where we're going to tell a person, you don't have to be in the middle. You should be to a particular extreme. That person, that in order to make himself a better person, and we'll see what that means soon, he decides, I'm not going to be in the middle, there's going to be some traits where I'm going to be extreme, in this direction, only you know what that person is called? Hasid, Nikra Hasid, isn't that interesting? So a Hasid is, so today in modern Hebrew thinking, the Hasidim are people who came from Eastern Europe and had a particular a spiritual leader, and there's different Hasidic sects. But in the classical Jewish terminology, the Hasid refers to an individual who, unlike the Hakam, is fully balanced. This Hasid decided, no, I'm not going to be fully balanced, I'm going to go to an extreme. I'll give you an example. Can you give me an example in the Torah of a person who, for one reason or another, decides to go out of the normal and go to an extreme position?
Nazir.
Yes, exactly. Nazir. The Nazir is an example of a person who is either perhaps obsessed with his looks, very vain, and he becomes aware of his vanity, and for him to be in the middle just wouldn't do it. So he decides he's going to go to an extreme. He's going to just let his hair grow and his beard grow, and he's going to be all scraggly and rough, and right? So this is the Nazir. That's an example, and we're going to see how this applies in Harambam's thinking.
I was thinking Moshe.
Why Moshe?
You know what they do an extreme.
So that's a very good example. That's a very good point. We're going to see soon. Put that comment on the side. Mikey is saying that Moshe Rabbeinu was a Hasid. Why was Moshe Rabbeinu a Hasid? Because the pasuk says, "Va'ish Moshe anav me'od." He was extremely humble, right? Wouldn't that be not balanced? It would be a little too humble. So that's a good question. Was Moshe Rabbeinu a Hasid or was he a Chacham? We'll see soon. But you understand? So again, to summarize, Chacham, we all want to start to be Chachamim. So why would anybody want to be a Hasid?
People should want to be both, right?
But no, it's either this. If you're a Chacham, you're in the middle. You're
Certain
balanced.
traits.
It's certain. No, the Chacham is all the traits.
I know.
So why would a person want to be a Hasid?
There's certain areas where you could improve that you have to go on one extreme.
Okay, you are correct.
What's the answer?
There are certain areas where you need to improve and you have to go to another extreme. So let's see how that works.
Are you just saying
What?
you go a little bit to the side?
Right, exactly. Right. Even the Hasid doesn't become an extremist. He doesn't go all the way to the extreme, but we'll see. We'll see. So okay, so let's try to give this example. To Mikey's example, a person says, you know what? For me, it's not enough to be humble. I want to go to all the way to the other direction. He is of a low spirit. Nikra Hasid. This person is called a Hasid. So according to this Mikey, and to answer your question, Moshe Rabbeinu was a Hasid. V'zoi midat Hasidut, explicit. Again, I'm reading it again. A person says, I don't care just not to be arrogant. No, I want to go all the way. I want to be very, very low spirit. That's a Hasid. If he's a humble person, that's a Chacham. And that's the way of the Chachamim. Right? But if a person is Shafel Ruach, that's Hasidut. The Hasidim Arishonim and the early Hasidim. Now you remember in the Gemara, it says how there was a group of people that were called Hasidim. Hasidim Arishonim, Hayu Shoyin Sha'ah Hadrim Palelim. That before the prayer, before they would say the Amidah, they would meditate for an hour so that they can properly attune their mind towards the presence of God. Okay, so let me explain this for a moment, just so you understand that, because even though it's not germane to the class, but I want you all to understand what that means, what the Hasidim used to do. So according to Halacha, tefillah without kavanah is not tefillah. I mean, if a person stands up in the Amidah, he says the Shemona Yisrael, and during the Shemona Yisrael, he's thinking about all these things, he's thinking about everything but HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? So he's thinking about the stock market, he's thinking about the Super Bowl, he's thinking about the weather, he's thinking, is it going to snow, is it going to rain tomorrow? They keep saying it's going to snow, it doesn't snow. There's really like, what's going on? Like, I have to shovel the snow, not shovel the snow. Then at the end of the Amidah, you have to say, Beruchim Habayim, how are you? Welcome back, nice to see you. Right? He's been trippy, he went all over the world, went to different places, so you say, Beruchim Habayim. So that tefillah, well, many of us have these distractions while we're praying. That's, now you understand why the Hasidim Arishonim, they said, wait, hold on one second.
You should say Gomel.
You should say Birkat HaGomel. I like that. All right, next time when I give this class, I'll use that instead. Yes. Did you say Birkat HaGomel today? Okay.
It's funny, I forgot where I heard it or read it, but someone said, probably a rabbi, a man, that you should, when you're reading the Amidah, saying the Amidah, you should use your book so you don't have your mind wander to things like that.
Some people do that. Some people, they like having the book open so that they don't lose focus. It's true. I knew Hachamim who did that. Yes, in Yerushalayim. Who literally, every single beracha, they would say the beracha out of the Siddur, but especially the Amidah, they would say it out of the Siddur, and that's everybody knows themselves, everybody understands what it is, but the point is that when you say the Amidah, you're supposed to feel like you're in the presence of the Almighty, right? Now, that's not an easy thing to feel, depending on your level of Torah and understanding and what that even means. You may or may not be able to attune your mind properly. So what I always tell everybody is, the best thing to do is, in order to have kavanah, is to imagine that you're in the Kotel in Jerusalem. So close your eyes, imagine you're in the Kotel, and that feeling that you have when you're in the Kotel, that's the feeling you should have when you say the Amidah, right? That's the simplest way to put it, and that's the tefillah, right? Now the Hasidim Arishonim, they were aware of their weakness, and because they were aware of their weakness, which is our weakness, I mean, who doesn't have it? They would somehow meditate for 1 hour. I don't know what would happen during that 1 hour in their mind, what the meditation was about. It's a long time, but they would do it, and then at the moment when they were ready to pray, they would stand up in the Amidah and pray and be fully focused during the tefillah and do the tefillah properly. That's a Hasidim Arishonim. So now I'm going to tell you what the Hasid is about. So because till now I've been beating around the bush. Arambam is going to explain it later. But the Hasid is as follows. There is a person who is aware that he has a certain weakness. And this person, being aware of his weakness, he says, look, if I was to become a Chacham, and I was to be perfectly balanced, and always in the middle, I know that I would tend towards this negative attribute. So for example, let's say a person realizes that he's a miser. He realizes, I'm really cheap. I realize I'm not like, I never spend money on people. I never try to give tzedakah. So he understands that he's a miser. So if he told this person, go to the middle, what's going to happen is he's going to end up gravitating towards his natural stinginess, right? That's just human nature. Human nature. You try, but you're always going to gravitate towards that particular yeser hara, let's call it. So what Rambam is going to say, and we're going to read it, but I want you to understand ahead of time. No. That person, being aware that he has a particular fault, when it comes to that fault, should go to the other extreme. And by going to the other extreme, even if he gravitates more towards his weakness, or he's getting pulled, be cheap, be a miser, but he's already on the other extreme where he gives a lot of tzedakah, and he tries to be generous to people, and he's going to be extra generous even if he doesn't need to. He's going to find a reason to be generous. So now his miserliness will not overtake him, and even if it takes him, eventually will end up back in the middle rather than ending in a bad place. So the Hasidim Arishonim, being aware of their faulty character traits, that I'm not going to live with myself in this way. I'm pulling myself in the other direction, and therefore I'll be able to overcome whatever weaknesses I have. Very interesting idea. And brother, this is like good psychology. I mean, I think people who study Al-Khotel from when they were young don't need to go to, can save money on the psychology bill. I know it's a good thing. Everybody goes to psychologists. Okay, it's fine. But it's like, I think Al-Khotel is a good therapeutic lesson in Torah and lesson in life. Okay? So now you know what the Hasid is. So now you understand Moshe Rabbeinu. So Moshe Rabbeinu, where was he raised? He was raised in the palace with Paro. He was a prince. So in his mind, he's probably like, I'm the prince, whatever, he's young. He's a prince, I got all these things. And then of course he becomes just a little, like he probably I don't know what age he was beyond. He wasn't brilliant for genius. He was ascending way beyond that. But anyway, so he realizes, you know what? I've been raised as a spoiled brat in the palace of Paro. I'm not going to be a humble person. I'm going to be all the way to the other extreme. That's why he made himself shafel ruach, right? Now he was mamash shafel ruach. There was no more humble person than Moshe Rabbeinu. So that was the idea of Moshe Rabbeinu being very shafel ruach, right? Although later on we're going to see, Rambam is going to bring the Pirkei Avot. There's actually Mishnah Pirkei Avot. This is me'od harei shafel ruach. That what Moshe Rabbeinu did, we should all do. But okay, put that on the side for now. I'm just letting you understand. So this is why Moshe Rabbeinu was a Hasid. Because he was raised as a prince, and he realized, oh, I better do something about this. By the way, most people who are raised in a spoiled way, it doesn't help them. It doesn't help their personality. It's not good, right? All right.
But there's children being brought up as Hasid.
Oh no, that's different. So what they call Hasid today is a little different. Meaning, today the word Hasid, right? You say the Hasidic Jew. Let's say you have Satmar, you have Lubavitch, you have Bells, you have Breslov, right? Today the word Hasid took on a different semantic content. For Harambam and also for the Chachamim, the word Hasid referred specifically to this. Today the word Hasid refers to Jews who associate with a particular sect or with a particular hashkafa, wherever their Rebbe, whoever the Rebbe is. So in the case of the Chabadnikim, they had the Lubavitch Rebbe. Okay, so they took his hashkafa. Then in the case of the Satmar, they had the Satmar Rebbe. So there's different. But that's not the classical Jewish meaning of Chassidut. It's right. So it's important to understand the difference between, because sometimes you use a word, and the word has one meaning in the Tanakh, let's say, or the Gemara, and then in modern Hebrew it has a different meaning.
Pious?
Right. Right. No. So that's interesting. So I think the word Hasid. Yeah. I mean, for the Hasidim today, you're right. Yeah, pious, but pious following a particular Rebbe or particular spiritual leader. Yeah, exactly. I think that's how I would put it. I like the word piety to explain the modern meaning of the word Hasid, which is different than the meaning that Harambam gives the word Hasid. Okay? That's important. That's important to know that. Fascinating. All right.
So you also want to just go the other extreme if you have a deficiency in character in order so that you do land in the middle, because he always wanted Shvil as a hot.
Exactly. That is correct. Yes.
I know you want to jump out and move forward.
Yeah, please.
Would you consider the Hasid, because I think that they're extreme, very extreme.
Right, so it depends. So really,
isn't that against
I'll tell you what, I met many, listen, when I was young, I had certain views about some of the Hasidic sects. I saw there's things that I didn't like. And then as I got older and more intelligent, I first of all realized that within the Hasidic sects themselves, there's many different varieties. So for example, you have, let's even take the Chabadnikim, the Lubavitch. But I think Lubavitch are wonderful, meaning they do so many zifuyot, so many mitzvot. You go to the airport, JFK, you're on the way to Israel, they stop there, or you feel like you're in Israel, you meet them there. It's beautiful. But some of them, they have the ideology that the Rebbe is a Mashiach, and then others have an ideology even more extreme than that. And then others say, no, he wasn't the Mashiach. So even within the groups themselves, there's not always it's not always completely monolithic, right? Or for example, the Breslovers. So the Breslovers, many of them, they're a little maybe, they lead a lifestyle that maybe wouldn't necessarily be appealing to me. Let me put it that way. But then you have some Breslovers who are Tamid HaChamim. I met some of them. I'm not going to disrespect anybody who's a Tamid Hacham. I don't care if he calls himself Breslov or whatever. Yeah, Tamid Hacham is a Tamid Hacham. I remember my father, he was in Rabbi Kotler's yeshiva, Aaron Kotler. So my father was the first Sephardi allowed into the Kolel, the Yeshiva Gevoha, first Sephardi Jew in Rabbi Kotler's, not in the yeshiva, but meaning among the inner circle of Rabbi Kotler. And so he became friendly with many interesting people. And I remember we used to walk in Jerusalem, and there was hardcore Hasidim, I don't want to say their names, it doesn't matter, but they're real hardcore Hasidim. They hug each other and that's it. I told my father, hey, it was Satmar. I was like a little surprised. He gets Israel. Yes, I says, you have to respect the Tamid Hacham. You know, he said, I studied with him in the yeshiva. He said, Tamir Pachan, he knows the Gemara inside out. I'm going to be disrespectful to somebody like that. And they were friends. So again, when I was younger, I was more like, but then I got older, I became a little more temperate. Let's put it that way. Okay, but let's get back to Rambam.
To the other extreme.
I went to, yes, yes, you're right. I went to the other extreme. Nice. Okay. Let's go to Halacha Yod Aleph. This is important. Let's go to the Halacha Yod Aleph. Umsuvin anu lalechet bidrachim elu abenonim. So according to the Torah, and what God expects of us, as described in the Torah, is to find the middle path. Not to be too much to this side, not to be too much to the other side. These are the beautiful paths, these are the straight paths. And this is a pasuk. This is an actual, for Harambam, this is an actual misvat aseh, meaning Harambam counts v'halachta b'drachav. You should go in the ways of God. We'll see in a moment what does it mean to go in the ways of God. But to go in the ways of God is misvat aseh deoraita. And how do you go in the ways of God? So now, let's read. Kach lindu befirush misvado. This is what the Hachamim say in the Gemara regarding this particular mitzvah. V'halachta b'drachav. Go in the ways of God. Well, what are the ways of God? Mahu nikra hanun. Afatay hanun. God, He knows how to find grace. Hanun in the sense, let me explain to you, pardon, meaning, yes, the person is not perfect. Yes, he made an avon. I'm going to overlook it. That's called hanun, right? Hanoti et asher achon, says Hashem to Moshe Rabbeinu. He says, I will decide who I want to find grace for. This goes to our discussions. When I was young, I was very, no. I got older, okay, that's hanun, right? Mahu hanun, apatai, right? Exactly what we were talking about before. Mahu nikra rahum, apatai rahum. The same way God has mercy, right? He's merciful. He shows compassion. You should be compassionate to people.
I like the way he writes Mikra.
Yeah.
Not that.
As
opposed to, we can't get to the intrinsic.
I like that. Yes.
God,
We don't know the essence of God. Of course, we know God's actions.
Right.
So when we say God is Rahum, what we mean is saying that in His actions, He acts with mercy.
Can we call that Rahum?
Yeah, of course. That's a great diuk, Mikey. Hazaku Baruch. Because of course we don't know God as He is to Himself. How could we possibly? Right? Harambam in the Monei Nevuchim, he says that when we say that God is Rahum, Hanun, Erchapaim, all that, we mean in His actions we see this attribute. Right? Ma'u nikra kadosh, apatei kadosh. Now, also God is kadosh. Kadosh, what does kadosh mean? Kadosh means holy. Holy also means whole, meaning separate from, right? So it doesn't mean holy. So, because we're physical beings, we're connected. So what does it mean? All right, let me explain the depth, because most people don't understand what kedusha is. So I'm a physical being, so I'm connected. So what does it mean connected? I'm connected with the physical. So there's lobsters and shrimps and reptiles and all these things that I can be eating and like be just part of all this. What? Yeah, just be part of all this physical pleasure, and then of course on the other side, in addition to food, there's women and stuff like that. So not to be kadosh means I'm connected with all these things. I'm a physical being, so yeah, I'll act like an animal, and and indulge in these averot, be it sexual averot or be it food averot. So kedusha means the pasuk says kedoshim tihiyu, and the Chachamim say on the word pasuk in Perashat kedoshim tihiyu, perushim tihiyu, separate yourselves. So how do you separate yourselves? You abstain from illicit foods. You abstain from illicit relationships, physical relationships. So that's the kedusha. So the same way Hashem is completely separate. He has no physicality whatsoever, right? He's separate from the entire creation because He's above it. You should be above it. Be above this, all the physical filth and all that. You should be above all that stuff, right? So you go to Goyim, I see like in the airport, like I was in the airport the other day on the way to Arizona, Mikey, actually, you would like this. With Shlomo, we wanted to pray. We got there very early because the flight was early in the morning. We wanted to pray. It was at next, so we said pray in the airport. So I went to this like one of those restaurants, whatever. Now, I want to get like a cup so I can do Netilat Yadayim before I pray. So they gave me Netilat Yadayim. There's a guy ordering like a big beer like this. Remember that? It was a crazy beer. I'm like, what? It's morning. It's 6 a.m. What are you doing drinking beer? But it's like part of the. You understand? It's part of what it means to be a human being. When you have no kedusha, you have a big beer in the morning, whoa, like you're mamash. Like I was, it's not something that I found to be in any way appealing. How about we put it like that, right? No, but you understand what I'm saying? Meaning, like, you have to learn how to separate yourself, right? So it's a beer, okay? Okay, 6 p.m. Okay. Right, so you understand the idea of kedusha? Separate yourself. You're above that. You're above that. God didn't create us as animals. He created us with kedusha, with Tselem Elohim, right? So that's mahu nikra kadosh. All right.
There's different levels apparently, right? Because we're kadosh and
of course.
God is kadosh, and it's totally different things.
Of course, but it's the same idea, meaning separate yourself. That's why I brought it as separate. Be separate from. We can never be fully separate. I'm always going to be affected by the gravitational pull of the earth. Okay, you're correct. And God will never be affected by the gravitational pull of the earth. But I can separate myself. That's why if you look at the Mishneh Torah, Harambam has a book called Sefer Kedusha, the Book of Holiness. It deals with only 2 topics: illicit food, illicit physical relationships. That's it. All of Sefer Kedusha. Hilchot Isurei Bi'ah, Hilchot Ma'achalot Asurot, Hilchot Shechita, right? That's what he deals with in that, nothing else. So that's what we're called. That's to be holy. And by the way, even though you're right that there's what God's kedusha is of a completely different nature, and yet in the human beings, there's people who reach a kedusha which is way beyond what There's no end to the kedusha you can reach as a human being. That's what I'm saying, right? And this is why the Nevi'im, they teach us what the attributes of God are. They teach us the attributes of God because we have to follow these attributes. Again, the pasuk says, you should go in the ways of God. How can you go in the ways of God if you don't know what the attributes of God are? What ways is God going? I need to know what ways he goes in. So for example, it says, Erech Hapayim. Erech Hapayim means he's very patient, right? He doesn't immediately lose his cool, what do you do? Well, be patient. Erech Hapayim. Derech Chesed. Do in abundance. Yes, I know I don't owe you anything, but I'm going to do it for you anyway. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to say those words, but in my mind, that's what's happening. Rav Chesed. Do something to somebody that's a Chesed. Do I need to do it? No, I don't need to do it, but I'm going to do it anyway. That's called Chesed. That's a beautiful attribute to have, right? Rav Chesed. Sadiq. Sadiq, be straight, yashar. Sadiq ve'yashar, tamim. I'm sorry, yashar is straight. Sadiq is proper actions. Tamim, perfection. Gibor, even to be courageous. Sometimes in life you have to be courageous. Don't be afraid. So if you have to pray and you're in the airport and you have to pray, you pray. What are you gonna do? There are people around you don't like it. Okay, don't like it. Like tough luck on you. You know what I'm saying? Meaning that sometimes you have to be gibor, right? Have integrity. Right? I've prayed in many different situations. I thank God, Baruch Hashem, nobody ever bothered me, but still, it takes a little courage sometimes. They're hazak. Hazak means to be physically strong. Interesting, hazak, right? Listen, Yoshua ben Nun, he was very hazak. We know that. Moshe Rabbeinu was very hazak. Many of the Chachamim, the Tanaim who fought the Romans, they were very hazakim. They were very physically strong people. So like this idea, it's not a correct idea. People think part of piety is no, hazak, right? I didn't say anything bad. I was very careful, right? You understand, right? Okay. And things like this, you got the idea, right? So the reason God is described in these terms It's so that we know this is how I want to be. Adonai Shilchama, Adonai Shemo. Sometimes you have to be a warrior. So these warriors in Eretz Yisrael, God bless them. They go, they fight the enemy. It's a kibura. It's hazakim, giborim. Right? These are good things. These are beautiful traits. And of course, according to your strength, you try to imitate God according to your strength, right? So the same way God is very patient, be kind with people, be gentle with people, right? This is what makes us a good personality. So the result of being in the middle is you're going to follow these traits. And if you find that you don't have one of these traits, what that means is that there's somewhere where you're not in the middle. You understand what I'm trying to say? So how do you measure whether I really am well balanced? I'm the best balanced person in the world. Nobody's as well balanced as me, especially when it comes to piety. But if I find, and I will find, if that was my attitude, that perhaps I'm a little impatient, perhaps I'm not so forgiving of other people, perhaps I'm not so kind to people. That's why it says, even when it comes to Talmud Torah. So, for example, there's a Gemara in Masechet Rosh Hashanah. Give me the Gemara, and it says that there was two descendants of Masechet Rosh Hashanah. See if you find it there. It says that there were descendants of Eli Kohen, and because up on top, the higher one, the red ones. There's right there. There's a small ones here. Becky, let me help only because here. 1 second. So let me see if I can find it. So in Rosh Hashanah, there's a story.
That is your camera on?
Yeah, I turned it on. Thank you. Yeah, I was right. I was correct. Dafil Chedamud Aleph. So the story is that there was two Emoraim. I'm sorry, and they were from the descendants of Eli Kohen. And what happened is that they would die young, but they said that there was a way to cure the Gezerah from Eli Kohen. If a person studies Torah, it's going to be mitkaper. Okay. Then Avaya says, not just that. He says, if you want a really good cure, like a more powerful cure than just Torah, Talmud Torah, do Talmud Torah and Gemilut Chasadim, right? And then it says, Rabba de'asak b'Torah chaya 40 shana. Abaye de'asak b'Torah v'gemilut Chasadim haya 18 shani. So they were both descendants of, it should be Rabba, not Rabba. So Rabba was so they were both descendants of Eli Kohen. And Rabba, who only studied Torah, he ended up living 40 years instead of 20 years, which was a more standard for the descendants of Eli Kohen. But then Abaye, he studied Torah and he was doing Gemilut Chasadim. He lived 60 years. Why did he live 60 years? He's doing Bitul Torah. He's studying less Torah. Why is it? The Rabbah should have lived 60 years, and Abaye was studying less Torah, should have lived 40 years. No, it was opposite. The one who only studied Torah, he lived 40 years. The one who studied Torah and Asak Begimut Chasadim lived 60 years. So it has to do with this, because God wants us to develop ourselves in a way that we somehow emulate our Creator. We have to emulate God. God wants us to emulate Him. So if you're only studying Torah, which I say only studying Torah, it's not that it's not a bad thing to only be studying Torah. I'm not saying that, chas v'shalom. But the point is, it's not enough, right? So where's your chesed? How are you doing giving chasadim? You're not. And that's a big thing, right? So that you understand the point? So that part of being a complete person is to do chesed. So you have to think, what can I do to do giving chasadim? On this point, by the way, tomorrow I'm going with Mikey. But if you go, it's fine. If you don't, it's fine. To do Bikur Cholim, we want to try to find people in the community that might need just encouragement. Like they see people care about them. It means a lot. So we have this group. If you want to join the group, let us know. All right. What time is it? Oh, another 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. Now, this is a really, really great point. Psychology. I think this point is fantastic. And I'm about to read it. It's going to sound really simple, but it's not. How can a person change himself? How can a person do it so that his personality really is in accordance with what we just said. Rahum, Hanun, El Chabayim, Chesed, right? How? Try to find an actual act to do which conforms with the person, with the particular trait that you want to acquire. It's not enough to think in your mind, okay, I am now a kind person. Okay, I'm kind. I just made myself kind. No, that doesn't mean anything. The only way to change yourself and to become a kind person is actually undertake actions which conform with that, with kindness, or which conform with erech hapayim, forgiving, or which conform with hanun, or which conform with rahum. Actually undertake actions, and the actions will change your neshama. If people think, oh, if I had a good neshama, I'll have good actions. And what Rambam is saying, he's flipping it. He's saying, no, do good actions. That's going to change your neshama. It's going to make your neshama good. Isn't that amazing? Let's say Rambam actually has a very interesting thing. Rambam says something interesting, and I can't disagree with him. This is what he says. I mean, he says, if you have a choice to give, let's say, $100 to one ani, or to have 10 aniyim and give each one of the 10 aniyim $10. He says, give 10 aniyim $10. We're talking about money that makes a difference in a person's life. Obviously, you want to make a difference in a person's life. I don't mean to give each one a penny and, no, but give them an amount. Better to give smaller amounts to many aniyim than one large amount to one ani. Why? It's the same amount of money. He says, because every time you undertake an action of charity, it changes you. It has an effect on the neshama. You remember before I said that what you eat affects your neshama? So he says, so you eat good food, your neshama is happy. When you do a mitzvah, your neshama is happy. So the more actions you do, the better it is for your neshama, and you're changing yourself as an individual, right? And that's why Avaya ended up living 60 years and not just 40 years. You understand? You get the idea? Like this, the nefesh is affected internally.
Hence the 613.
What? 6?
That's why we have 613 non-stop
Correct.
action for the most part.
Yes, exactly.
Or help our character and our.
Yeah, exactly. And what's beautiful here is that it's teaching us to become human beings and to be kind to each other. And if we all follow these laws, we would be a wonderful nation. But in Israel, you see a lot of people. There's a lot of beauty in Eretz Yisrael. You see certain good traits developing. That's what I believe. Yeah, I hope I'm right. Okay. The Chesed, so Halacha Yud Gimel. ולפי שהשמות האלו שנקרא בהן היוסד, הן הדרך הבינונית שלנו חייבים ללכת בה, נקראת דרך זו דרך השם. This is called the path of God. If you go in this pathway, you are going in the path of God. What is zechut? והיא שלמידה אברהם אבינו לבניו, and this is what Abraham Avinu taught his children. Meaning, God loved Avraham Avinu, and God said, before he destroys Sodom and Gomorrah, he says, listen, I have to speak to Avraham Avinu, and why do I have to speak to Avraham Avinu? So he says the following, Ki yedativ, I know Avraham. I know that Avraham Avinu was going to teach his sons, he's going to teach his household. They're going to go in the path of God. The path of God is exactly what Rambam is describing here. Bahu Hanun, etc., etc. The greatness of Avraham Avinu is not just that he told people that there's one God. Okay, we know that he told people there's one God. Fine. Avodah is bad. Yes, we know that. He taught the people how to become good people, how to go in the path of God. So he told them these are the attributes of God, and this is how we imitate God. Fantastic, no? Mm-hmm. And if you do this, make you to bring a blessing upon yourself. Because the minute a lot of the challenges we have in life, a lot of the slaps in the face that we have in life are related to weaknesses in our personality. And God slaps us in the face because he wants us to become better people and stronger people and so on. And when you do this, when you bring these changes upon yourself, you're going to get beracha for that. Shneimar, as the pasuk says, Le'man avi Adonai el Avraham et asher diber alav. By virtue of the fact that Avraham Avinu is following all of these things and teaching his children in his household to go in the path of God, I'm going to bring Avraham Avinu something special. What I didn't bring to other people, he's going to get a special beracha. You understand? So there's a relationship between being blessed by God and going in the path of God. If you go in the path of God, you will be blessed by God. Bar minan, if a person deviates from the path, then sometimes God is going to have to, kind of try to push him back in the path. It might be a little painful.
So
Yeah.
our deeds affect that, right? So if we're doing something wrong, either something bad will happen to wake you up in a way, or
Right, that's what the Gemara Masechet Berachot Perek Aleph said, that a person, if a person has difficulties, suffering in life, he should inspect his actions. The Gemara says so, based on this. Because God doesn't want anybody to suffer. He
Right.
wants us to be good people. He cares about us. So my father once told me something very beautiful. He says, you know what it's like? And maybe we'll end with this. So the pasuk says, Mizmor David Adonai ro'i lo achsar, b'notei asher biseni, al nemi nochati na'aneni. We read this Mizmor Friday night.
Yeah.
Exactly. And he says, Shettecha mishantecha hemma yinachamuni. David HaMelech says, your staff and your rod, they bring me consolation. What does it mean, your staff and your rod bring me consolation? So the shepherd, he has two sticks. And one of the sticks is a little shorter, and he uses it to prod the sheep or the cattle to go forward, to keep going. Or he has a longer one where he stretches his arm. If somebody's going off the road, he stretches it to make him go back on the road, right? So now, when the ro'ed does this, when the shepherd does this, it's painful. Meaning the sheep feel, what just happened? I was just walking, I was prancing freely, in the thing, and so like I felt, what's going on? Like why is the shepherd being so mean to me? Well, the shepherd wants the sheep not to fall off the cliff. The shepherd wants the sheep not to go into that cave which has a wolf or a bear in it. The shepherd wants the sheep to go forward towards the grass where there's going to be water and delicious grass, and he wants it to be happy. And in order to make it happy, it has to make it a little pain sometimes, right? So David HaMelech says, "Shettecha u'mishantecha." When I feel this, prodding from God, I get sometimes slapped and hurt. Hemma yinachamoni. I feel consoled because that means that there's a shepherd looking after me, and I know he cares about me, and he wants me to go in the right way. So I actually feel good about the Yisurim that Hashem is sending me. I accept it fully. I know it's for my own good. Gamzu l'tava. So that's the idea of David HaMelech.
Why do we say that before Kiddush?
Right, we say it actually.
3 paragraphs.
Saturday before Kiddush.
We say it on Shabbat.
Yeah, we say it at night and then we say
Because we say it,
again.
because at the end of the Mizmor we say, and David HaMelech is referring to Olam Haba. He says, "Ta'aruch lefanai shulchan neged zorerai." There will come a day where all these enemies, in Olam Hazeh, Shimei ben Gera and other people that were chasing David HaMelech, when I go to Olam Haba, I'm going to have the table set before me, and my enemies will be below, and they're not going to be able to touch me anymore. So ta'aruch lefanai shulchan neged zorerai, tishanta b'shemen roshi kosi levaya. I'm going to have oil on my head and a beautiful full cup in front of me, like the Kiddush cup. Kosi levaya, like cup is full, and then you say Kiddush.
I didn't know that.
Isn't that nice?
And I'll dwell in your house forever or something.
Yes, yeah. B'shavti b'et Adonai l'lechamim. Exactly.
Yeah.
So Kiddush, when you say at the moment of Kiddush, you feel me'en olam haba.
Wow.
All right, gentlemen.
Very good. Excellent.
Very nice.